Hey there, friends. I'm Robin Mons. This is Jennifer Winder, and we're here on our 14th episode of Hungry for More. And we're going to talk today about a principle that's very, very important if you want to get off the gain lose cycle and just lose the weight and stay there for the rest of your life. Here's the principle: motivation versus commitment. We really need to understand the difference of them and learn which one of these is going to see us through and keep us sustainably at the weight that we want to be at. So living at a healthy weight, I wish, you guys, I really do wish it was an event, right? That we're like, all I've got to do is figure out how to lose the weight. And once I do, check that off the list. I'm done. Don't even have to think about this again. I don't even have to think about what I'm eating. I can just do what I want.
Mm-hmm.
We all know that's not the case. That's not how it works. In order to live at a healthy weight sustainably, we're always going to have to be conscious. We're always going to have to be paying attention. Now, we don't have to be hyper-focused and spending hours a day thinking about it and having it be this intense thing, this part of our lives, but it does have to be something that we're committed to, something that we're paying attention to. And most of us have not had that experience. We've done the gain lose cycle over and over and over again, and we really don't know how to exist in this state of maintenance, of sustainability. And one of the reasons why is because, like we've been talking about all these episodes, is because we've missed the mindset. We're just so focused on the food and the exercise and being on a regimen. We haven't done the work of our mind to support us to not only get there, but to stay there. And today we are talking, this is strictly mindset, where it's getting to understand the difference between these two things. So Jen, tell me about motivation as far as how you've used that in the past to get you to lose weight and stuff, and how you'd run out of it, or just tell me your experience of motivation.
Okay. First, I want to proceed with something, and then I'll go right into that.
Yeah.
You were talking here, like we're just going to be talking about mindset right here. And I think it's really interesting because we are not here to tell you how to lose weight. That's not what this podcast is about. There are people who have done extreme things like gotten surgeries. There are people who are on prescription medication, or they have a very rigid plan that they follow, or they have no plan, right? Whatever. That's not what we're here to do. What we're trying to tell you at this time is that no matter what you're doing, if you don't do the mindset work, it will all come back. I have seen people who have had surgeries who lose the weight, and it's so fun. They're so motivated. And it's so exciting when you're seeing weight come off every day. Anytime you start a new plan, right? You're like, oh my gosh, every day I lose a pound or whatever that is. And it's so exciting. And then you get to a point where that stops. And it's not as exciting. And that's where we need to talk about commitment. And I've seen this over and over and over again in my journey of coaching and my personal journey of weight loss. I used to coach people for years on challenges, 60-day challenges, 90-day challenges, and they were phenomenal. People were having amazing success on them. We were checking in with each other. They were checking in with me. I was coaching them where they needed coaching. And it was really, really great. And then the challenge would come to an end, and it would be a couple of weeks before another challenge began. And they would just go off. They'd eat whatever they want. They're like, oh, I have a few weeks to be free. The motivation was, the motivation was gone. There was no end in sight. So they did what they want. They did what they wanted. And then when we started again, it was like, well, now I've got to lose the weight that I lost on the last challenge. And it was trying to figure out how to get people to go from being so motivated to committed, right? And to maintaining that weight. So you stop the cycle of what's going on, no matter how you lost the weight. You have to do the mindset work at the same time, no matter how you are losing the weight. If the mindset work is not done, it's great. It's fun while it lasts. You lose your weight, you go on your cruise, you let it go, and you come home and it keeps letting go, right? You lose your weight, you have your event. And then when the event's over, it's like, oh, good, I'm done until the next event when I have to do it. I know people watching this can relate to that. That was my life for most of my life. And it's a hard cycle, but that's what we're trying to help you break. We're trying to help you with the mindset so that we can move on to the commitment part.
Right. Let's talk about the energy of motivation. Motivation is a high vibing emotion.
Yes.
Think about the high vibe you do get when you are about to start a plan. Maybe you saw somebody who was super successful doing it and you're like, oh yes, I think this is going to be the right fit for me. and you've decided whatever method you've decided that you're like, yes, this is it. This is the answer. That's when motivation kicks in. And motivation is a very useful emotion. It gets us to do stuff, like to believe in something. It gets us to step forward and jump in and start making change. Motivation is wonderful. And we, when we're honest with ourselves, we can also see like there is a hit we get from starting something new. Yes. There is an excitement that comes, and that's okay. Ride that ride. But this is when it's going to cycle down where we lose motivation. Maybe we're a few weeks in. I know for me, I could never keep a strict meal plan more than 2 weeks. I'd totally lose motivation and start feeling restricted, and then start telling me all the reasons why it wasn't good for me in the first place. So motivation, think about like, I liken it to like a flaky girlfriend. That person you meet and you just totally hit it off and you're just so excited. And it's like, this high vibe, you just get each other and you're just so excited for this person in your life. And then a few weeks later, she ghosts you. You're like, what the heck? Right? That's how motivation can feel like. It's this rah, 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 high vibe. And then it always does, because think about how much energy it takes for you to sustain that energy.
Right. It's
a lot for you to have to cultivate and develop and keep going consistently. It's not meant to be a long-term emotion that sees you all the way through a goal. It's to get you started. It's to get you to say, okay, I'm going to make the change. I'm doing this. So that's its job, and it does a great job at it. But we expect motivation to be what sees us all the way through. How many times have you said, or other people say, oh, I was doing it, but I just lost motivation,
Yeah.
Well, we do lose motivation. We're supposed to. It's supposed to now, once motivation gets us to say, I'm serious about this, I'm going to do this, even if it's hard, I'm going to get started. That's its job. And then, you guys, this is the trick. Instead of expecting motivation to stay with you, we need to shift to commitment. That's a different emotion. Just even me saying it energetically, when you think about things you are committed to in your life, do they feel the same as a high vibe of emotion as motivation?
No, I mean, it does seem long lasting, right? And that's a good thing. When we think of things that we are committed to in our life, like I'm committed to my family, I'm committed to different things, it's a good, steady feeling.
Yeah.
I know that no matter what, I'm committed to them and I'm going to do whatever I can to help them. Right?
Right. Yeah. And commitment is the emotion that has you doing things you don't really feel like doing, but you're committed to that person.
You need to do it. You're committed to doing it. Yeah.
Right. It's like, even in the basic ways of like changing the diapers and feeding in the middle of the night, you do it because you're committed to that being, you're committed to the cause, right, whatever it is, whether it's a person or a cause that you believe in. And so the good news with commitment is it doesn't require a lot of your energy to cultivate that emotion and to keep that emotion steady. Whereas motivation, again, it's a high vibing, high energy. And so when we can shift to commitment, and this is where we will see people a couple months in and they're like, I don't know, is something wrong with me? I just don't feel as motivated. This is when the brain is like, is this really going to work? Or it's getting kind of boring, or I don't know. I don't want to have to be conscious. Right. That's how you can know that the motivation is kind of wearing off. And instead of seeing it as a message of, yeah, this doesn't work, or I don't want to do this anymore, just seeing it for what it is and saying, oh, here's motivation passing me off to commitment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I think you see that sometimes. One of the things I like when there are challenges that last a certain amount of days is sometimes people continue on, right? Because they have that commitment to continue. They've committed to it.
Right.
So the key is getting that commitment to last in your life without having to have these things, right, that are pointing us to it. Doing it for yourself because you are committed to yourself.
Yeah.
To give yourself
number one. Yep.
Number one, because when you're 100%, when you're feeling good, you're way better off to all these other people, right? It's a better person you're giving these people who you are committed to.
Exactly. Now, one thing that you do need to understand is that the life as a committed person, committed to, like, of course, eating here, being a conscious eater, it's not as exciting as the cycles of motivation when you're on that high. And we have to understand that this is where we also see people that they're on track. They're doing great. They're eating consciously. They're getting results, but they're like, I don't know. I've been thinking of doing this new thing. I don't know. Maybe should I go off blank certain foods. And the reason for it is just because maybe they're hearing other people do stuff and they're like, ooh, we're used to that diet mentality of like,
Right.
oh my gosh, the shiny toy's coming. That's going to be fun. And if that's the reason why, questioning that and saying, am I wanting to do that because my brain is just used to this cycle of this, carrot dangling in front of me that I'm chasing? Or is what I'm doing working and it's just not as exciting as starting something new?
Right.
That's very important. And that is, on one hand, we say, I don't want eating and losing weight to be this perpetual thing I'm chasing all the time. But on the other hand, we do tend to get bored of the commitment to it and we go chase it. So it's really being aware of yourself and your reasons for why you're wanting to maybe jump ship and start something else. And I know I had to do that. I get certain things that I'm like, wow, that sounds fun. That sounds amazing. But I know in that moment, it's not really something that I'm needing. It's something that just sounds fun and exciting versus just the steady commitment.
Or your group of friends is doing it and you're like, okay, I'll do it with you. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not that that's a bad thing. Like if that's
No.
where your motivation comes, we're talking about that passing the baton. We're talking about passing the baton from motivation to commitment. There is a baton toss there. And it's so important because it's what gives you the longevity. It's what keeps you going. And honestly, freeze up. Once you're in that commitment phase and things are just happening and there's no question about, there's no end in sight, right?
Yes.
I have to do this until then. I have to do this until then. Once you realize this is just how life is, it actually frees up a lot of time for a lot of other things.
Yes.
Because you're not constantly worrying and planning and trying to be like, okay, what am I going to do next? What am I going to do next? And because I had done so many different things and was literally this, right? When I started eating in a way that I committed to and eat that way the rest of my life, when I first started, I had a family member who literally said to me, what are you going to do when this one fails too? Because that is the pattern that I had proven I was living. And it was once I was really committed and I'm like, no, this literally is, I'm done with that cycle. That they were like, okay, I get it. And, but I just did it for so many years, you guys. And I commitment is a lot more freeing.
Yeah. So how do we generate commitment? Is it, we tend to be so focused on the sustainability of the food we're eating, which is important. If you're being overly restrictive and all of that those are hard things to be sustainable with, and conscious eating teaches you. And in previous episodes, we talked about that balance of health and pleasure. But how do we generate commitment? Well, first of all, motivation and commitment are both emotions.
Yes.
They're both feelings. And as we know, emotions are energy in motion. Excuse me. That's why you hear us speak about the energetics of certain ways of being, right? The high energy of motivation versus the constant lower vibing energy of commitment. And those are emotions and they don't just land on you. You don't just be like, oh man, it just ran out, or I can't get myself committed. No, our emotions are created by our thinking. So as you start to notice that maybe that motivation is wearing off and your mind starts to wander and you're like, I want to bail on this or whatever, this is your sign that motivation has done its job to get you going. And now it's time, like you said, to pass the baton to commitment. And how do we generate commitment? Well, it's in getting our mindset. It's in saying, I want to be a conscious eater for the rest of my life, right? All I need to do for me to stay committed, I remember just saying to myself, this is the easier way. Just keeping my brain on makes it easy. And I prefer easy versus the ride of the roller coaster.
Well, and it's that choosing your hard, right? Like it was always hard for me because I was always like, what am I going to do next? Great. This is hard. Wait, this is restrictive.
Right.
Besides
the hard too.
Result? You're still going to have, it's going to be hard either way. Which one, what result do you want?
Right. And not even speaking to the hard emotionally that comes from having arrived somewhere and to lose that progress and all that comes with that emotionally and mentally. And when my brain would be like, oh, this is hard, I don't want to keep doing it. I'm like, what is hard about this? I've created the most, I'm going to have to do this forever, whatever it is. And conscious eating for me has been the easiest thing as far as all I need to do is listen and respond. I don't have to cut out things for the rest of my life. I don't have to deprive myself, but I do need to stay awake. And I would just keep saying that to my brain. All I've got to do is stay awake. There's no other crazy rules here governing me. I just have to stay awake. And those mindsets of just like, yeah, this is the easier road, or I'm going to stay conscious every day. That's my intention, to listen to my body and be in partnership with her. Those are the kind of thoughts that helped me generate commitment to the point where I am so committed to that. It really is difficult at this point in the journey for me to go against my body cues because I'm so committed to her. I'm like, hey girl, it's your job to manage my weight. You just let me know what you need and I'll take care of it for you. And I love you and I'm grateful for you. Those are all the kinds of things that helped me be committed to following through to conscious eating, is because I felt that way about my body. I saw this as a partnership and I didn't see it as, what am I allowed and not allowed to have? And this is just how it's going to have to be. None of it. So,
Awesome.
Yeah. So wrapping up, unless you had other thoughts, motivation is a great thing. Use it, ride the ride, ride that energy. But when it starts to wear out, don't make it mean that it's something you have to quit at, or, there's something to be said about saying, hey, is this sustainable? Is this how I can do that? You can assess things, but living at a healthy weight for the rest of your life is not about making sure you're motivated for the rest of your life. It's about shifting into commitment and having the way you take care of your body be something you're as dedicated to as you are to the most important people in your life, that you show up for no matter what. And that will see you through. And it's a lot easier to maintain that than it is the cycles.
And it will last.
And it will provide results that last.
Yeah. And you just know, okay, I'm good. I got this. Done with that cycle, never going back.
Exactly.
Just is amazing.
Yeah. So that cycle has ended, but it doesn't mean the work hasn't. Now we are in commitment, and the work of commitment is a lot less than the cycle work of the getting motivated, losing it, and having to figure something else out.
Well, it's what ends the cycle, because that cycle will just continue on a loop until the commitment steps in.
Exactly. So super important principle. Think about commitment, reflect on these things. Think about how you are energetically with motivation. Think about commitment. Think about the people you're committed to. Think about people who are committed to you, and you just know you can count on it no matter what. That's what we need to be to ourselves. And when conscious eating is the method, when conscious eating is the framework of, I listen to my body and I respond to my needs, what's complicated about that? What's hard about that besides needing your attention, right? So
it's just the body saying, mind, I need you to be committed, right? I'm here for you, but we got to work together.
Beautiful.
Okay. Awesome.
Thank you guys.
See you later.
See you next week.